Hello, I'm Dan Rogers, and today we have with us the world-renowned Avi Lipkin, who's with BiblicalAlliance.com, and he's in Israel right now. Avi, welcome.
Thank you. Great to speak to you, to meet you. And I want you to know Amarillo is one of my favorite places.
Have you been to Amarillo?
Oh, very often. I don't know if you ever heard of Pastor Alvin Walker,
Oh, yeah.
Liberty Baptist, but I've been there many times.
Well, that's fantastic. Probably a little bit different weather than you have over there in Israel.
Oh, yeah. We're suffering for Christ here with 80-degree weather, blue skies, very nice, everything wonderful here. And all I can say is I heard there was a snowstorm, and which our dear friend was stuck in. And I got stuck in Tucumcari, driving from Albuquerque to Amarillo. So I know what it is to get stuck in one of your western snowstorms.
Yeah. Well, they come and go, but today it was -1 this morning, so a little chilly, but a little warm back up. Well, let's tell the people what you
Well,
do.
they say in Texas, yeah. No, I was just
Yeah,
saying in Texas, they say chili today, hot tamale.
yeah, there you go. Yeah. What do you do as far as trying to get the word out to people in Israel over there, and what is it that your Biblical Alliance does?
Okay, well, firstly, I was born in the United States, unless you don't consider New York City United States. I moved to Israel when I was 19. And when I was 40 years old, I was working in the Israeli Prime Minister's office as senior editor and translator. And I was supposed to get tenure in my job. And they said, no, you're never going to get tenure because we know your political views. I was fired for my political views by socialists, by communists, because I always was a member of the Likud. And so I basically, from November 1990, I have been working in the United States, speaking I've been over 1,000 churches, radio and TV shows, Fox News. And so I'm kind of like Joseph, that I was expelled from my Jewish homeland by my fellow Jews. And the Christians in America are like modern day Egypt. And, in those days in Egypt, 4,000 years ago, people came from all over the world to Egypt, just like today, people come from all over the world to the United States. Anyway, to make a short story long, the United States is the greatest country in the world. I love the American system. I was born and raised in New York until age 19. And there is no country in the world that can compete with the United States for being the greatest country in the world. Definitely not Russia, not China, nobody. And let me tell you, yesterday I was watching President Trump in his inaugural address. And every time Trump speaks, I start crying because I'm so excited and so happy to see him. And I really, really had concerns when Biden and the Democratic Party were in power that they would destroy Israel. I really had fears. So yesterday, I was so relieved that finally it happened. And our beloved President 45 came back as President 47. And what do I do with my Judeo-Christian party? Israel is a country based on God, based on the Bible. And by the way, you probably will agree with me that the United States is based on God and based on the Bible. And President Trump said that. Israel is a country with, I would say, primarily Jews coming either from Europe or coming from Islamic countries. Um, Very few people in Israel really understand the greatness of the United States, the American people, the Constitution, all the things that made America great. And what I'm trying to do with the Judeo-Christian Bible Party is to bring Judeo-Christian Western civilization and democracy to Israel and strengthen the alliance between Israel and the United States. We are the only democratic country in the Middle East. surrounded by crazy, crazy Islamic countries. I have a 3-year jail sentence in Switzerland for saying that Islam is a psychosis and Allah is the devil. But that's what we're facing. That's what we're facing here in the Middle East. I think the United States has come to understand that. And my wife is from Egypt originally, and she pulled me 5 years before 9 into the World Trade Center. And her socialist bosses, see, Israel is very much dominated by communists and socialists, like Bolsheviks. They basically threw her written report into the garbage. But my wife gave me a copy, and I put it into my first book, Is Fanatic Islam a Global Threat? 5 years later, the World Trade Center was attacked by Islamic terrorists. And people said, Avi's a prophet. Avi's a prophet. And I said, I'm not a prophet. I just listened to my wife, Rachel. And Rachel has given me many, many pieces of information that have gone into my 7 books. I get so much information that I explode. I have to write books. And so I get the information out. And so I'm not a prophet. I'm just a normal human being, hopefully, that does his job and warns the people about what's going to happen. I think it's in Ezekiel 33, verse 6. It says, if the watchman on the tower sees the sword coming, and he doesn't warn the people inside the gates of the city, the people of the city will be killed, but the blood of these people will be on the hands of the watchmen who did not warn them. And so I consider myself and my wife watchmen and watchwomen. We are constantly warning the United States, the greatest country on earth, of an enemy that Americans simply cannot understand Islam. They can't understand what it's all about. I would say Americans never really understood communism either, but they understood it a little better. And then in the end, the Berlin Wall came down and communism came down. But Islam has 1.5 billion people, and their plan is to destroy America because America is the great Christian Satan. And then, of course, destroy the little Satan, which is Israel. So I think everything I'm doing is for one cause, and that's for the glory of God, for the truth, the veracity of the Bible, and basically saving the human race from the crazy, crazy Islamic insanity. So that's what the Bible Block does. We are expecting, I believe, many, many millions of immigrants to come to Israel. I think because the intermarriage between Jews and Christians in America is 84%. I think we will be having many Christians coming to the land. So we have to prepare for massive immigration. We have to prepare for the borders growing. Not because Israel wants the borders to grow, but because the crazy enemies are going to force us to expand. We saw this on October 7th. So I'm thinking that we have to have a political party which gives representation to Christians in our Knesset. Knesset is the Congress. We have Muslims in our Knesset, but we have no Christians. So I work very much, I'm Jewish, but I work with many Christians, and I'm hoping that they will come, that there'll be all of a sudden a tremendous victory for Jews and Christians to march together in Jerusalem. And I'm sure you as a good Christian understand what that means. We are preparing for the coming or the return of the Messiah. For me, the important thing is that Jews and Christians get over hatred of 2,000 years and get ready for the good days of the Messiah.
Well, that sounds fascinating. It appears to me that the only people and the only religions that really counter tyranny is the Jewish religion and the Christian religion. All other religions support tyranny. And that's what we're really fighting here.
I agree 100%.
And a lot of people don't understand that. If you don't believe in Christianity or Judaism, you're going to have a tyrannical government. And
right.
I've been told, and I don't know how true it is, you hear about the one world government and, you know, the forces behind trying to take over the United States from within. And a lot of people think it's China. A lot of people think it's Russia. But the fact is, it's actually Islam. and the Democratic Party and the Democrats are pretty much controlled by Islam. And my understanding is it's all being orchestrated out of Egypt or Turkey. I mean, am I right on that, or is that wrong?
Okay, I'll give you I'm not saying right or wrong, but I'm going to give you my impression. I think that there is something called the deep state, the one world government, and they are going to employ Muslim support for overthrowing Christian America and, of course, the Jews. But I think what's going to happen, and this is a long shot what I'm saying now, I think at some stage, the one world government, a lot of it will be bought out by Islamic money. But I think at some stage, because the Islamic idea is to destroy the great Satan, America, that's not good for business. That's not good for money. And I think at some stage, Islam will be totally eradicated by the one world government. But the one world government will be even worse than Islam in the end. My job, I think, is to focus on the threat of Islam, the money that is being spent in buying out American media, American universities, American corporations. There's so much money flowing into the U.S. And the moment the money flows in, the bribery turns normal, level-headed American Christians and Jews into people who worship the money that the Muslims give them. But like I said before, the moment they turn on America, which is eventually the plan of Islam, because Islam has to destroy Christianity. So I think at some stage you will see the entry of the one world government in a big way against Islam. But it won't be good for Christianity and it won't be good for Israel.
So who's behind the one world government? Who's that going to be controlled by?
Well, I think I am not an expert on the one world government. I'm sure you are much more of an expert than I am. But we know that there are organizations and there are families and there are people high up who know what's going on and they know what they're doing. So they think. But I think they will be thwarted by God Himself. So, but what I see at this time, I don't worry so much about the one world government. What I worry about is Islam, because what they're doing is they are kidnapping our children, American children, in the universities. American children don't even have an idea where Gaza is, and yet they protest for Gaza. Nobody understands the goodness of the Israeli people towards the Arabs. And if the bottom line of Islam is kill every Jew on the face of the earth, I don't think that's something that any real American would support. And so my work is for the last 35 years is to come back frequently to the States, especially to Florida and mostly to Texas. Texas is my adopted state when I'm in America. And there is too much happening, and I provide the proofs. It's in my 7 books. I'm working on an 8th book now about Turkey and the Armageddon. Turkey is planning to create an Armageddon war against Israel. Egypt is a threat to Israel. We need to talk about Egypt also. But meanwhile, we have almost completed the defeat of 7-front war. And I'm hoping that with President Trump, we will totally destroy the nuclear project of Iran. By the way, the Iranian people are good people. We love the Iranians. The Iranians love us. The problem is not the people. The problem is the Ayatollah regime, which Democrat Jimmy Carter and Zbigniew Brzezinski brought in 79. That was crazy. So the question is, if America has the right leadership, things will turn out well. If Americans do not have the right leadership, things will turn out well, but the price will be much higher.
Yeah. So how does Europe fit into all of this? I mean, if you look back to history, I mean, it almost looks like it's fixing to repeat again, where you have Germany moving in to vacuum left by the United States in certain sectors of that world with the Arabs. And you see the Ukraine situation. I could see where this could, and Europe has a lot of fear of because Russia, and perhaps it's a made up enemy, but they're using them as a way to become a military power again. And if Europe is united against a perceived enemy, then they could become a uh, massive world power in a very short period of time.
Well, I believe that America was temporarily eclipsed because of the Democratic leadership, and that takes you back to Obama, and of course before him, Obama. I'm having a senior moment. Who's the president before Obama?
Bush,
No, no, before him.
Clinton, well, you had George
Clinton.
uh,
Clinton.
H.W. and then
By
Clinton,
the way, Bush as a
Bush, and then Obama.
Republican. Bush. Excuse me.
I said you had Reagan, and then you had um, Clinton, and then you had George W. Bush, and then you had Obama, right?
Okay, I'm focusing primarily on Clinton and Obama, and of course Biden. For some reason, the Democrats have been very successful in the electioneering, and the Democrats are much closer to the Europeans, I think, than the Republicans. And of course, we heard and saw President Trump last night. Um, he's talking about America being the first power. I think that what we saw before with the Democrats was America should share the power with Europe and other forces, which are controlled by the one world government, the deep state. So I believe in the primacy of the United States of America. Um, Germany, and I'm going to say something a little contrary to what you were saying, but I hope you accept it in good faith.
Sure.
Uh, the Germans, they slaughtered 6 million of my people in the Holocaust. The United States turned Nazi Germany. Firstly, there was no humanitarian supplies to the Nazi Germans until the Germans surrendered. I'm talking Gaza has to surrender completely if they want humanitarian supplies. But of course, the world is pushing Israel into something else. But Germany today, as a westernized democratic country, is the strongest ally, the strongest country in Europe and close to the United States. Same with the Japanese. I was born in 1949 and in New York, and I grew up. I don't know if you remember "Victory at Sea" by Richard Rogers. The music of "Victory at Sea," the history of the U.S. Navy. I grew up with that, and let me tell you, nobody hated the Japs and the Germans like I did. But look at Japan today. Japan today is the strongest ally of America in the East, and they help to counterbalance the threat from communist China. Today, now I love the Chinese people, but communist China today is a real threat to the United States. So we need allies like Japan. We need allies like Germany. Again, I agree. There's probably a deep state situation here. When I was in Switzerland in 2009, that's when I got my 3-year jail sentence for attacking Islam. But my Swiss friends, some of them sounded anti-American. And I said to them, listen, America saved your butts in World War II. And, the joke about the Swiss was they worked 6 days a week to provide armaments for Nazi Germany. And on the seventh day, they went to church to pray for the victory of the Allies. So there's lots of material that we can laugh about the Europeans. The Europeans, I say another thing also, knowing the history of America, you had a lot of rebellious genes in the Europeans who came over to America for freedom of religion. And the wimps basically stayed in Europe, the ones who took orders and without questioning. Uh, I can make a list for you of why America is so great. I'll tell you also another thing. There was a German philosopher by name of Heinrich Heine, and he said 200 years ago that the world is going to have to choose between the foolishness of the Americans and the despotism and tyranny of the Russians. And that was so true because to this day, what do you think about when you think about Russia? Despotism and tyranny. And Americans, okay, we laugh about the Americans all over the world, but there was a great man, who personally is my idol also, Alexis de Tocqueville. And Alexis de Tocqueville wrote a book, or was actually two books, Democracy in America. And he said, what will make America great is that the American people are a good people and their pulpits are on fire for the Lord. And then conversely, he said, when America's pulpits are no longer on fire for the Lord, America will lose its preeminence in the world. And I think that's what the elections were about in November. The United States was so close under the Democrats to losing its fire for the Lord. But you know what? America consistently, and I've been following the statistics, consistently 70% of the American people are Christian, and and for them the pulpits, and I don't care what the denomination is, the pulpits are on fire for the Lord. And the Americans are still the greatest people on earth because they're the best people on earth. So regarding the Germans, but they're allies. We need them. The British and French have their Islamic demographic problem, but we need them. Japanese, smartly enough, don't allow for Islam in their country. We need them. United States has to go about strengthening its alliances and not allow any threats to come to America from China, North Korea, or Russia. That's my story in short.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a great perception there of what's going on. And how can we help you over here in the States?
Well, I'm not asking for money. I'm not a beggar. I'm just saying if God wants this political party to succeed, I worked for 11 years to get the signatures, to get the party registered. I worked 11 years to raise about $100,000 in the United States primarily, and I paid taxes on that money because you cannot just bring money to Israel. It has to be reported to the tax people, and you have to pay. But the party got registered on May 15, 2018. We have run in 5 elections. From what it seems, we're going to have elections again in a few months or in a year. If I want to have a party in our Knesset, in our Congress, I'm going to have to need money for newspapers, radio, TV, offices, vehicles, salaries, and everything I'm doing out of faith. I'm not a rich man. I had the tool that we need for this political party. It has to be legally registered, no illegal stuff. But then the money goes to the newspapers, radio, TV. We need 150,000 votes to get our first 4 candidates into the Knesset. Until now, we have not been doing well because nobody knows us. We have no money for publicity. So until we have the money, I could go from 400 votes to 1,000 votes or 5,000 votes. We need 150,000 votes to get Jews and Christians to march together in our elections.
And you need Christians to show up and run for office in Israel. Is that right? In the Likud party?
Yeah, they're very afraid. They're very afraid. We have in Israel anti-Semitism against Christians because of 2,000 years of what the European Christians did to us. And most Americans have no idea about the Protestant Reformation or about the greatness of American Christians that love Israel. And so, I try to explain it, but most Israelis, are locked into a way of thinking where nobody knows the New Testament. Now, listen, I'm a Jew, I'm not a Christian, but I love reading the New Testament. I love Jesus as a great rabbi of the Jewish people. You say Jesus, they'll throw stones at you in many parts of Israel. So there has to be an educational movement in Israel, not to convert Jews to Christianity, but to make the country user-friendly for Christian immigrants, because I think there will be millions of Jews and Christians coming home, and then for sure my party gets in.
So what's the primary difference between Jews, the Jewish religion, and the Christian religion? I think you started to hit on it there.
You know what? I'm going to tell you something outrageous. Very often I come out and say Christianity and Judaism are really the same thing. And don't be offended by what I'm saying, but I say that Christianity is like Judaism, but light. You have Bud Light.
Right.
So Christianity has the same ethics as Judaism, but what we have is we have a set of laws. It's described in the New Testament as a burden too grievous to be borne. And I myself studied to be a conservative rabbi. And let me tell you, I understand the Christian way of thinking, that the religion is too difficult to be borne by common people. So a lot of people don't like me for that, because there can be according to the rabbis, there can be no change. So we're kind of like coasting, I think, on a road to disaster. Without Christians marching together with us and having some serious reforms, which will make life easier for Jews and Christians to observe the love of God, we're going to have a problem. And I'm pretty much alone in the way I think.
So the Jewish religion, they tend to believe in the Old Testament laws, and the Christians have said, well, we don't have to deal with the Old Testament laws anymore. Is that basically the difference?
Well, it's not just the Old Testament laws, because what happened was the Old Testament, if you can imagine coral in the ocean, the coral starts out as a fleshy type of sea plant, and then when it dies, it calcifies, and then the next layer of coral builds up on top of the level that died, and then so on and so forth. We have, I'm going to say some words, but you might not understand them. We have the Old Testament. Then after the Old Testament, we had the interpretations of the Old Testament, known as the oral law or the Mishnah. And then we had the Talmud. The Talmud was the interpretation of the Mishnah. And then after the Talmud, you had different types of rabbis, the Sforaim and the Rishonim and the Achronim, and this goes all the way to the 20th century.